Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby, and today Fata is going to show us exactly how to play in the KV4. Now Fata 119 has got a very nice matchup here. We can see that there are only 5 tier 8 tanks on the enemy team. And looking at this is a fairly nicely balanced matchup with mostly tier 7s. Now the KV4 does exceedingly well in these kind of matchups because of its ridiculous all-round armor. This tier 8 Soviet behemoth depends on that armor to be able to weather the storm from its opponents, to be able to use its 107mm to progressively do damage to them. And when I say progressively, I'm trying to indicate the fact that the rate of fire on this tank is not brilliant, but the penetration, 226mm, is. So by using this armor, it can take out its opponents one by one by one. Now the armor literally is all round on this behemoth, especially frontally. So Fata is playing on Pearl River. This map was fairly recently changed, and already he put a nice shot into the side of that T-32. Now, if you're watching this map for the first time in a while, you might be going, oh, well, where is he? Yeah, he's right through the center. This new change to Pearl River is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. It really has opened up the map and made it a lot less linear. And tanks such as the KV4, with great armor and a nice punchy gun, really can dominate the center of the map. Now the KV4 doesn't have the largest amount of gun depression, and I do feel that this position that you can see here doesn't require so much gun depression, so it's not too bad. So Fata has put in 2 decent shots into the T-69. That's a tier 8 American autoloader medium. And you could see that the T-69 was just bouncing shell after shell, and here he goes again, bouncing shell after shell on the KV4. That's because I believe the T-69 has got roughly about 170mm of penetration with his AP rounds, and that just simply isn't enough to compete with the KV4. The KV4 absolutely chews up every tank in the game that has about 175 and less. So, for example, a tank like an IS with 175mm, with 175mm of penetration on its 122mm cannon, really has a very hard time penetrating the KV4. Other tanks you can take advantage of are, for example, the IS-6, and even the 112 if the 112 doesn't decide to fire heat rounds at you. So the first shot enters his tank, probably through here, just outside the mantlet. Got to watch out for that with the turret armor on the KV4. But he is putting in very nice shots. He's already done nearly 1,000 damage into that T-32. And there's very little the enemy can do here. This is just a nightmare scenario for the opposition. KV4 has protection down both flanks. It's very hard for the enemy to get around him, if at all, practically impossible. What that means is that KV4 can dictate the pace of the combat and come out having had a very nice impact in this game. Already 2 of the tier 8 enemy tanks vanquished, and a Tiger P who is running for the hills, literally, to get away from this Soviet behemoth that's coming after him. Now, unfortunately for Fata, his team are not doing so well down each of the other flanks. Looks like the enemies have made the breakthrough on the east, but luckily, with this lovely new position that you see here, Fata is able to put pressure on the enemies from above. Now, this is one of my favorite positions to advance into early in my medium tanks, and generally a degree of gun depression. And wow, check that out. The KV4 just absorbed a shell that has about 250mm of penetration on that T-34. One of the most devastating cannons on any of the tier 8 premium tanks. And another one. Looks like the enemy T-34 can only see the turret of Fata's KV4 here, and is unable to really effectively engage it. Now this T-34, let's keep in mind, is shooting up at Fata, which means that his armor should be even more effective. Fata's trying to punish the top of the KV4, but in the meantime, he's just whittling down this Tiger, having already done 911 damage. And a casual finishing off the Tiger. I believe the Tiger only penetrated Beta once there. So he's going to try and aim at the top of the T-34 again. And a little unlucky that those shots don't go in. But the lack of gun depression on the KV-4 is preventing Beta from doing so. So a Tiger P. Is that the same Tiger P? He came all the way around again. Wow. And Fate is trying to tank with the rear of his tank here, which is completely the right thing to do. Manages to punish that sneaky Tiger P. But to be fair, well played to that Tiger P for at least trying to flank all the way around. And it really shows me just how much better this map is. It's a lot more exciting. It's probably one of my favorite maps in the game now, with the changes that have been made. So a T-34 is focusing up on the T-25-2 on the other flank. He has forgot about strong Soviet tank that now has the side of his profile. And it might not have the highest rate of fire in the game, or the highest alpha damage at tier 8. The KV-4 can put in shot after shot after shot, especially if given the side of very important targets. So Fate is trying to rush back here to prevent the cap. And he lost over 100 health there with that bit of driving. What would have been better? If you want to come down a slope without taking any damage to your tank, maybe only losing your tracks, you want to go literally slide down it so that your tank looks like this as it goes down the slope. If you're able to do that, then generally you don't take damage. What you don't want to do is to go front ways, because what happens then is the front of your tank bangs into the ground and takes physical damage. But I'm just nitpicking here. Fate is on 5 kills and 5,000 damage. He's having a huge role in this game, and now he's 1 versus 5. That IS managed to sneak into a hold down position, and this enemy E25 just put 2 shots in Fate's tank. And this is looking ugly now. He's surrounded. Not only has he got tanks in front, he's got a Jagdpanzer Fear in the side and a T-28 prototype in the side as well, with a 120mm gun on the T-28 prototype. Wow, he just dodged that shell, and somehow his armor's weathering the storm from the E25. And he's able to punish the enemy IS. I believe that the enemy E25 has run out of AP rounds, and now he's firing HE at his tank. And that's not a good idea. The KV-4's armor is so well-rounded that your HE ammo on that tiny little pop gun that the E25 has is not going to work. A Panther comes around the corner and Fate tracks him. He looks at the Jagdpanzer 4, bounces his shot and then focuses up on the main target, which is the Jagdpanther. He even bounces a shot from the Jagdpanther. Now he's using the back of his tank, angled, to bounce the Jagdpanzer while he engages the E25. That was just a fantastic play. Absolutely perfect. Well done to you, Fata. And now we're seeing just how well-rounded the KV-4's armor is. This Jagdpanzer Fear, even though it's a tank destroyer, is struggling to do anything to this KV-4. And Fate is doing a really good job of using that rock to avoid fire from the T-28 prototype. He made a bit of a misplay there. I think if he'd turned his tank in the same way with his tracks, he could have been able to kill that Jagdpanzer Fear. Or even if he'd just grazed him by reversing into him, he could have been able to kill him. But I'm not taking anything away from him. Fata has just managed to turn a very stressful situation into a 1 versus 2. What a fantastic result so far. But unfortunately for him, he still has to deal with that T-28 prototype that's below him. One thing I'd just like to quickly highlight why the game's just got a break in the tension. It's a really intense game, this one. Is that you saw Fata using the back of his tank when angled to bounce. And that's one of the keys. If an enemy manages to flank around you, one of the worst things that you can do, let's say that the enemy is here. One of the worst things that you can do is turn your tank to try and get your frontal armor to the enemy, because that gives them a flush shot on the side of your tank. Or I think Fata might have the jitters here. If I was in his situation, my heart would be pumping. Can he penetrate this T-28 prototype? Yes, he can, and he fired his first premium round of the game there with 289mm of penetration. When the KV-4 really needs to penetrate, it can. Now, he can't forget about that Jagdpanzer. That Jagdpanzer came around and snuck one into him. But thankfully, the Jagdpanzer didn't learn, or at least he thought that maybe Feta hadn't learned, and he was able to take him out. A completely unnecessary APCR shell there into the Jagdpanzer, but Feta didn't know if he was going to have to shoot the T-28 prototype or the Jagdpanzer Fear. So this is a very tricky situation. That T-28 prototype has got a lot of gun depression and a good amount of frontal armor. With Feta's APCR rounds though, he's more than capable of punishing the T-28 prototype more or less anywhere where he shoots. And these APCR rounds in the KV-4 are one of the best things about the tank. He bounces the shot from the T-28 prototype there. But he doesn't have the gun depression. Oh, he's making fire there at the cheeks, You can penetrate the turret cheeks. You can penetrate there. Oh no, Feta, what are you doing? Not at the end of the game. Okay. So Feta could easily penetrate the cheeks of the T-28 prototype. Doesn't need to shoot it in the hull armor. But he's doing a great job here of side scraping. Puts in a nice shot into the front of the tank. I think the T-28 prototype has decided that now it's the time to do this. Bounces another shot and puts a flush shot into the side of the T-28 prototype. Okay, don't get rammed, don't get rammed. You've got 5 health, don't get rammed, don't get rammed. Oh, he couldn't do anything about it because the T-28 prototype tracked him and tried to ram him. And thankfully, Feta, in his 100-ton behemoth, didn't take any damage from the little bump that the T-28 prototype gave him. Bounced the last remaining shot and put in the final hit into the T-28 prototype. What an amazing result. Feta secured not only the Kolobanov's medal, but a Pool's medal for the 10th kill of the game with that last shot. So what an absolutely intense round this was, and a crazy end to it. Just a couple of things when engaging a T-28 prototype. That the machine gun port that you see down here at the bottom of your screen is actually 50mm thinner than the rest of the armor. So you can use this to penetrate the T-28 prototype with nearly any tank that it will meet. Also, the cheeks here are very flat indeed. They have 200mm of penetration, but no spaced armor like the mantlet has. So if you're using APCR rounds at the end of a tense round, just like Feta was, and they've got remarkable penetration like on the KV-4, then he could easily penetrate here in the turret. Nevertheless, that was only just a couple of things that could have been done differently. Feta had an absolutely amazing play here at the end of the game to go into a 1v5 situation where literally every enemy tank of the 5 were trying to engage him practically at the same time. Many of the Kolobanov medals which I see have got large breaks in between the combat. Feta was under an intense amount of pressure with the tanks really coming at him 2 by 2. And that's even with him limiting the amount of pressure that could have been put on him from the side with a good use of this rock while engaging the front. One thing I would have liked to have seen, however, is the enemy T-28 prototype could have just loaded 1 HE shell and shot Feta anywhere in his tank to take him out. So Feta did get a little lucky by the looks of it that the enemy were probably simply bewildered at how well he was doing in his KV-4 at the end of the game. Anyway, let's take a quick look at the post-game stats. So this replay was from yesterday. I always watch the really good ones that come in, and I liked this so much that I really wanted to get it out while it was fresh for you. Feta picked up the Steel Wall, unsurprisingly, a high caliber medal, a Spartan medal for Ricochet near death, a Kolobanov's, and a Pool's medal. Feta got 2,156 base experience. That's just simply huge, achieving 7,700 damage in the game, 5 times more than what the next person on his team did. He showed remarkable marksmanship with a fairly inaccurate and long aim time gun, firing 36 shots of which 35 hit, and 33 of those penetrated. Now this is simply silly really. Soviet armor at tier 8 in this kind of a matchup. Hits received 54, of which 17 penetrated and 37 were non-penetrating, giving him a total damage blocked by armor of nearly 10,000 and a potential damage received of over 11,000. This was an absolutely awesome replay, so I'm going to be giving it a thumbs up. Beta, thank you so much for your replay. This was a real pleasure to watch, and just congratulations on a fantastic round. It's got to be the best that I've seen in a KV4 and probably one of the best that I've ever seen at tier 8. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this replay, please consider rating it down below. It really helps the channel. And let me know in the comments what you think about the KV4. Do you think that this is probably the only kind of environment where it can simply be the behemoth that it is? Maybe you feel that it like falls away when it has to start to engage tier 9 and majority tier 8 and tier 10 opponents. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Now, while the turret does have weaknesses, if you can get flush shots into the top of the tank, then I can't. Flush. How did I say flush? That's ridiculous. What the? I don't know why I said flush, but I clearly did, and I have to redo this now, Peppity. What am I going to do?